Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for today's case study. I'm really excited about this. This is a topic that I love because I love like putting puzzles together, and this is about putting a puzzle together in many ways. But I'm really excited to welcome Annie Davis. So Annie and I used to work together at Blackbaud, and just always appreciated her analytical skills, her ability to kind of look into markets and see opportunities. I think this is going to be really important to share some of that wisdom today. But now she serves as a chief product officer at WeVideo. So maybe some schools who are watching this are familiar with WeVideo. But obviously, Annie, you can tell us a little bit more in a sec. But in addition to managing the product, she also manages the marketing as well. So she's got significant responsibility. She's got years of experience working with independent schools. And Annie Davis, welcome to this case study. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Peter. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So, hey, before we get started, if folks aren't familiar with WeVideo, can you just give us, tell us a little about yourself and tell us about WeVideo?
Yeah. So, like Peter said, I'm the chief product officer at WeVideo. I'm based here in Atlanta, Georgia. WeVideo, actually, we've gone full remote, so we're across the globe. Actually, we have quite a few folks in Norway, where the company started. We are also in Romania as well. And WeVideo is an edtech company. We provide video learning tools for schools, universities, and businesses. And we really believe in empowering learning through interactive videos. So video can be such a powerful medium. And I think, in different markets, it really has different meanings. In K-12, it really is about bringing joy into the classroom and different learning styles. And how can we encourage that sort of different thinking through video? And then, higher ed, it's used a lot of times in classes where you have to show mastery. So if you're a nursing class and you're learning specific skills, you use the video, and there's interactive components to show mastery through that. And so lots of cool tools there. Same on the business side, a lot of learning, professional development kind of stuff as well on the business side.
Well, as part of that, I'm sure you're kind of always looking into like, how do you bring components of the product to market? Meaning like, how do you introduce new things? How do you find new customer bases? And the reason I mention that, and for some people who are watching this is going to get a little businessy, right? But it's important because I've gotten lots of calls over the last 6 months about, hey, Peter, like we've got this new program that we want to roll out. In fact, I can think of a specific example of this. And so I'm like, oh, that sounds really interesting, but have you validated, how big of a market there is to support this program? By that, I mean, like, how many families actually would be interested in what you're offering? And, that's called sizing the market and trying to understand, like, how many people are relevant to the types of things that you want to pursue. And I think it's an important skill for independent schools to learn because, you want to validate things before you make big investments of time and money. So I'm going to start at the very beginning. Like when I say market sizing, can you provide a definition of that? Like why is that an important thing in your opinion as somebody who's leading product, leading marketing, and all those sorts of domains?
Yeah, it's so important. It's one of the first things that we do with anything. So if we're going on the marketing side or we're going for a new offering, what is the potential market? Same thing on the product side. Before we build anything, what is the market for this? Like, does it make sense? And I think that's where it all goes back to, Peter, is the opportunity big enough for us to put the investment into what we're going to do? So market sizing is really about thinking through what is the audience for this particular offering that we have, from a broad standpoint. The total market would be, if it's a product for schools, what is the total population of schools in the United States? Is it only United States? Can this product serve in international spaces? So it's really about seeing what is that sort of broad opportunity and then bringing it into smaller chunks. So, it could be something that could go for the full market, but we've got to be a little bit more specific. Like, is it something that they have the ability to pay for?
Right.
Is it something that we see value in, the kind of willingness to pay? Is it something that is solving a problem that they have? I mean, it's really about figuring out how many people would be willing to pay the price that you're going out and asking for the service or product that you are presenting.
Yeah, and let me contextualize it with an independent school example. So I had actually recorded a case study, and maybe some people had seen it, with Kevin Folan, who's the head of school at Providence Country Day. And what they did was they Providence competitive market, Northeast competitive, right? And so what they realized was that
Yeah.
if they discounted their tuition by, I think it was 36%, that 6,000 additional families would open up, their market would open up by additional 6,000 families. And so,
Yeah.
what they were able to do was to go out and validate that, be like, all right, if we went from X to Y on tuition, what does that then mean in terms of how many more people would be attracted to the school as a result of that lower tuition price? And like I said, they determined it was 6,000. But knowing that, like, if a school came to you and said, like, all right, like, we're kind of interested in a similar thing, and I've gotten a bunch of those calls, so I know they are, like, what would, like, when you're sizing the market, like, how would you get started? Like, what would be those first steps that you would take, with that type of an example?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes back to research. So you have to understand what are the demographics and the dynamics in the market that you serve. What are your competitors doing? What is out there? And I think it also, for us, what we've done a lot is going out and doing studies. So doing surveys and understanding what is your budget for this type of thing? Is this a problem you're looking to solve? Are you happy with the education that your students are getting? Or for a certain price, would it be worth it for you to go out and do that, to go to a private school or to send to a different type of educational program? I think that's the critical piece, is understanding, what is that willingness? Who's out there? What are the competitors doing? How are they positioning? It all goes back into that. To me, it's the research, it's the getting the data. And that often is the biggest challenge, is
Getting it.
how do we get to
Yeah,
data?
I was going to ask
and
you,
that,
right?
that is a challenge.
Yeah.
It is a challenge. It's something that I deal with. I think all businesses deal with it. You go out and, you might have survey data from the county that you're in, for example, and you understand, how many kids are going to public school. You might have salary data. Like, you might be able to get, Blackbaud even sells this kind of data that you could go and do some of the analytics and understand, okay, well, we have this broad, let's say we know that we have, 5,000 families in our market, right? So there's total 5,000 families that live within a drivable range of our school, if we're not a boarding school. And so you take that and then you say, okay, how many of those are in public school today? How many are in private school? And of the private schools, what percentage or what piece of the pie do we hold there? So, you would say that's definitely addressable, in my opinion. They're going to different private schools. If we're offering similar type programs, you would assume that they're probably in your addressable market. But then looking outside of that, I think for your specific example, it's like, okay, if pricing was what was holding them back, how do we understand how close are we in terms of pricing? You mentioned if we lower it by however much, we'd open it up to this much more. You should start to look at the demographic data, like what is the total assets the families have, and get some of that analytics data that can help overlay and understand that the propensity or the even like the ability to pay for this is there.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, they can pay at a certain level, they exist, they have children, that's starting. It's all about kind of finding what your criteria, your scoring criteria are,
Right,
that would say that they are a fit or they could be a fit.
So the unfortunate answer is there's no easy button. Like, you just can't like go to one place and get all this data. It's really a question of like, all right, I know that there are this many number of Catholic schools. Like, if you go from X to Y, right, pricing wise, then maybe you'd be more relevant to families that are paying for parochial schools, because you're a little bit closer in terms of those tuition range. And then you can start to look and say, all right, approximately how many families are in Catholic schools, and how many of them are within our catchment area, and what are the income demographics in those areas. Like, you can start to triangulate and start to put together a picture. How do you segment it though? Like how do you start to you start to build this big picture of data, but then how do you start to drill in to understand, like, okay, here are the pockets, or here's the personas that are most interesting to us?
Yeah, I think it goes all back to your criteria. So what are the criteria that you deem would say, like, this is a good fit for us? So, maybe, the parents went to a private school and they're sending their child to public school. That might give you an indicator that they might be more of a fit for a private school, or maybe they wanted to do private school and it wasn't in the budget at the time, or that kind of thing. You could look at, I think a great example is, they're paying for Catholic school or a parochial school, and it's sort of it's close enough. We're kind of in the close areas of similarity where it might be a potential. But like you said, I mean, a lot of it is just taking what you have and kind of drawing a story from it and then going out and testing your hypothesis, I think. So I do think it's about knowing your market. I think, for us, a lot of times it is about getting out and talking to customers, to talking to, let's say you start to see a little bit of influx, like you're starting to get a few more families that you maybe wouldn't have gotten in the past, or maybe you're getting applications from a group. It's like, okay, let's understand, where is that coming from? And you start talking to those, you have a few conversations, and you might uncover some interesting, oh yeah, well, actually at our church, this thing happened,
Right.
or, we heard about that, and it starts to drive in it. It also can give you insights from your marketing for a school. I mean, how are you meeting your audience where you want to meet them? And I think, Peter, too, we talked quite a bit about kind of the price aspect of it, but there's a lot of other criteria that go into deciding where you're going to send your child to school. And so I think understanding what is the true value prop of your school, what is it that you guys offer that you can differentiate, that you can talk to, sometimes the schools, it's the culture and the feeling of it. And how are you making sure that that is known in your marketing materials, and that you're going out and meeting the people that would be in that kind of demographic? So again, I don't think it's an easy answer, but I think if you can sit down and do some kind of deep thinking about what are the criteria that we think could be a fit here, and let's go out and collect as much data as we can, and kind of segment in that sense.
I completely agree. I mean, that is such an important part of it, because sometimes when you do that deep thinking, you realize, oh, I don't know if we've really positioned ourselves properly, right?
Right.
Like, it uncovers maybe some issues that have been kind of challenging you that, what I like to say is, we're really good in general, like society, as a society, of treating symptoms of problems. We're not always great at diagnosing the disease and getting to the root core of it. So if you're looking to expand enrollment and you've been struggling trying to figure out why you can't, well, there may be other issues that are deeper seated that you need to start to uncover, and this process can help with that. I want to just jump back for a second, because you used a term that like you and I use all the time, but maybe schools aren't familiar. You talked about addressable market. Can you define that for people so that it's clear as to what that exactly means?
Yeah. So total addressable market is the kind of total market of anyone who could go to school, that would go to a school. So I would think of a total addressable market for a school, anyone who has school-age kids, right? That would be your total addressable market. But you can break that down into what is actually your kind of serviceable available market. So what actually, of all those families that have school-age kids, there might be some criteria that would say they're not going to send to a private school, or they would never send to a Catholic school, or whatever the criteria is that would maybe preclude them from considering it. So you think of a available or serviceable market as who we could actually serve with our services. So what is a market that wants what we're offering and can afford to buy it and is aligned with the values that we're offering, all those things. And that's, again, it goes back to, I think, kind of truly understanding the value prop as a school, and being, I think, honest with yourself about who are the people that would come here and who are the people that wouldn't. And is it worth it to you to kind of open up? And are there small changes that could be made that would open up that group that would maybe not usually consider your school?
And it might be price, it might be program, it might be any number of athletic programs. It could be any number of things.
Mm-hmm. It could be anything. I mean, it could be facilities, I mean, it could be, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. And I think there's probably a lot of strategic decisions made at the senior level at a school to say, like, we're losing out on students. If we're doing a good job of understanding the market and talking to folks and understanding what the challenges are, what the needs are, both with our current families and with prospective families and families that haven't even considered us. I think that those are all important conversations to have, to really understand the full picture of where you stand as a school and where are the opportunity areas that could grow that serviceable market for you.
You talked earlier about competitive analysis. Like when you're doing that kind of competitor research, what are some of the things that you're looking for that could help, independent schools that are looking around? And competitors may be an independent school, it may be the public school down the street, it could be
Yeah, right.
any number of things, right?
Homeschooling even. Yeah, so we're looking at price, of course. So we want to understand what is the price and then what is the value. So for that price, what is the offering that they're giving?
Right.
So from a software standpoint, it's like from a feature standpoint, are we apples to apples for them? And a lot of times what we'll look at is, we'll kind of in a spreadsheet type of format, we'll say, okay, here are all the different programs or features that we could offer that are available in this market. What do we check the box on versus our competitors? So if it's a private school, like what programs do we offer? What levels do we get to? What extra services do we provide compared to X, Y, and Z schools down the street, and it helps give you an understanding of and then if you take that and pair it with the price, it gives you a really good sense of the value, right? So we offer half the programs that school offers, but we're half the price. Like maybe that makes sense versus if we're doing less and we're trying to charge the same amount, there's some discrepancies there. And you want to make sure that you're in line with the market. You've got to stay close to the market, what's happening out there.
It also allows you to see how you differentiate from one school to the next, right? Because,
completely.
like you're going through this and you're like, oh, they don't do this, 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 and this, but this is like really important to who we are. Maybe we need to double down there, right?
It kind of goes back to like we were talking about earlier is understanding where you stand. Like you, as a school, you have to understand where you stand in the competitive market, because anyone who's looking, I think for the most part, if you're looking at a private school, you're not just looking at one. Usually you're probably looking at several, and it's a serious investment for most people. And understanding, what am I getting for the money that I'm paying? I think there is some of that kind of emotional feel of being on campus and I get a good feel here, but a lot of it also is like, what are the programs? What are my children going to be offered for what we're paying? And you've got to understand how you position versus the other schools. And I think probably Jim.
Yeah. So I'm curious, are there any like techniques or approaches that you've learned over the years that might be helpful to share with folks who are watching this?
I think the competitive one's probably a good one is starting by mapping it all out and doing it visually, doing it in a spreadsheet and really understanding where you stand. I think that's a great one. I'm a big fan of getting out in the market, like I talked about, talking to folks and doing surveys, really driving that understanding. Understanding your market penetration and where you stand in terms of, we talk about you've got your total market, so all the potential families that have kids. You've got your serviceable market, which is who could come to us. And it's important to understand, how many of the families that could choose us and that would be in our kind of segment here actually do. And I think understanding that as the years progress, if you can look at historics as well, that's certainly important. But I think, unfortunately, there's not a secret sauce here. I think it takes a lot of like that deep thinking. I think it takes a lot of conversations and understanding your market, understanding the competitive landscape, and really trying your best. I think that I say what key takeaway too for me is it's never perfect. If you're trying to get exacts, you're never gonna get there because there's just stuff that you don't know and you won't be able to know. There's not just a magic data source.
Right.
So being comfortable with a little bit sort of directionality and, it's not a perfect example. It's not a perfect number. It's not exactly right, but it's close. We have enough confidence in what we're putting together to say that it feels right in terms of the numbers. I think that's a key. People get really hung up in, well, how do we know the exact number and that kind of thing?
It's like with enrollment projections, right? Like you're looking for a ballpark,
Yeah.
It's really hard to be able to say it's going to be 472 kids. Like that, we're 100% confident that that's where we're gonna land.
Right.
Yeah. That actually segues into like another question I have. How often do you do this, right? Because you're saying you're looking for that ballpark, but what strikes me is that you're always acquiring new data, and so there's always the opportunity to refine. I'm like, love to get your take on that.
Yeah, I would say probably quarterly if you're really on top of it, maybe twice a year. I mean, we stay on top of it. It's also situational. Like we've got a new product coming to market. We need to understand and really hone in here on this specific area. For schools, it's probably not necessary to do quite so often. Maybe annually you take a closer look on it. And the nice thing is, I think once you put in the baseline work and you really have dug into your market, dug in to understand, what is your serviceable market? What are the criteria that define that as serviceable? Once you've done that heavy lifting, it's easy to kind of go in and see, okay, what's changed in the market and what's happening here.
Yeah. And because at that point you've started to connect the dots, right? Like you kind of know where to go. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to get this data here and that data there. And I know the right questions to ask. And it's like,
Totally.
it's like riding a bike. It just gets easier and easier and easier.
Exactly. Yeah. I think about it, at Blackbot, it was something we established a long time ago. And we really had a very, I think, firm understanding of our market and where we sat in the market and what our value was. And at WeVideo, it's something that I brought in a little bit more of. It's a younger company, and it's not something that we've dug into. Our history has been in the K-12 space. We're digging into higher ed and business now. So we're doing what I think is kind of the fun work of the research and like getting it all put together and having those conversations in the market that have been just really insightful and helpful and sort of forming our strategic thought on our market.
Yeah. And I love this process too. Like to me, I'm curious what you think about this. So to me, it's a combination of like hard data, the analytics, that kind of the science. But boy, there's a lot of like art to this too. There's a lot of like writing a narrative that makes sense and kind of telling your story. Do you feel the same way?
I totally agree. It's like a fun balance of, it's hard data and we're looking, even at spreadsheets and we're analyzing numbers and stuff, but it's a lot of the soft too, where you're taking that data and you're marrying it with the conversations that you're having, understanding the surveys, the stuff that you understand about the market, and bringing those two together to, like you said, form that narrative. Like, what is the narrative? How are we telling our story in regards to our market and where we could go with our offering? And I think I enjoy it. I think it's for someone who likes, if you like learning, if you like research and you like digging in, it's kind of a fun strategic type of question
with that can have an immense return, right? If you're disciplined about it and you do, get the work done.
And the schools that do this really well, like you can tell the schools that really kind of understand who they are, understand their market and what's the value that they're offering. It really, I do think, can make a huge difference.
Yeah, what I see a lot of, and I think I get the instinct as to why you would do this, right? Like, there's a lot of pressure to fill schools, enrollment is 79% of revenue, right? Like, you've got to make sure that you're hitting that number. But, I think the trap that I've seen is that a lot of schools try to be all things to all people. And when I have that conversation with schools, I'm like, it's a really tough promise to keep because you end up spreading your resources so thin that it's hard to deliver on that promise. And, the schools that I'm seeing really kind of grow and thrive, they've really doubled down on who they are in their market segment. Like they're just like unapologetic about it too. Like, hey, if you don't fit this profile of school, like that's okay. We're going to refer you to some other schools that are going to be awesome fits for you. But like, this is what we do. And it's scary because you're like, I'm going to miss out on all these kids. But like, it can also have this compounding, like positive effect in terms of growing your school, your word of mouth, and all the stuff that comes with it.
Totally. I think there's something about authenticity, like just the school understanding and knowing who they are and sticking to that versus we're trying to be like you said, everything to everyone. It's like if we understand who we are as a school and what our brand identity is and what is our value that we bring to the market, who are the best fits here. I mean, that is just going to breed a positive experience for the folks that do go there. And I think that's when you get the word of mouth and you've got the marketing happening for you.
You just said you said like a phrase, like a term that's really, I love brand identity, right? Like we talk about brand, but brand identity, like when you drill even deeper, it is so critical because what that does is it allows people who are interested in your school to see themselves in your community. Like they can build those natural connections. The example I like to use, and this is something that some of you may know, Americus Reed. He's a professor at Wharton. He's like the world's foremost expert in brand identity, and he's done a lot of work with independent schools, so you may be familiar with this. And I'm a big fan of his. And like one of the examples that I love is Patagonia. Like, people aren't necessarily buying it because they think their fleece is better than the next company down the line. They're buying it because like they see their values reflected in Patagonia, and they're unapologetic about it. Like, schools have an amazing opportunity to do that too.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, Patagonia is a great example. They really understand who they are as a brand. And like you said, they're unapologetic about it.
Right.
This is who we are. This is what we believe in.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, that's okay.
Right.
You don't have to buy from us.
Right. The world's big enough. We're gonna sell in a fleece, right? We're gonna be A-okay.
Totally. And talking about a company that does understand their market too. Like they get what their customers are looking for, and they've got great programs like you can bring your fleece back and recycle it and they'll buy it back. I mean, that is understanding your market, that's going to resonate.
Yeah.
You know, that it's worked so well. Yeah. It's just pretty incredible.
Yeah, I totally agree. Hey, last question. I mean, I could literally talk about this all day because I just think it's so much fun. But if a school were to call you and say, I'm really interested in what you were just talking about, like, but I don't even know where to get started. Like, what would be an immediate thing that they could do today?
I would say what I would probably do is I would look at our population of current students and I would understand the demographics there. Like, I would start there. Do we understand the people who have already chosen us? That would be our ideal customer profile. So do we understand that? Who are these people? What are the demographics? Like, what are the areas that they live in, and what are the other things that they're involved in? What churches do they go to? I think understanding that is the baseline, and that can help you kind of define what is your criteria, because what are the things that those people all kind of similarly fit, and can you segment those groups, right? Are there certain, we happen to have kind of a baseline over here in this neighborhood, and then we've got some scattered here. It's like that's how you can start to segment. I feel like that's really powerful. Then it becomes the work to go out and say, okay, how many other people fit this criteria? And that's where you can get census data and you can start doing research. There's tons of resources. The National NC.
The National Center for Education Statistics.
Yeah, statistics, which is a really helpful resource. They've got a lot of the student data, and so you can get stuff there. There's a lot of places you can go, but if you understand the baseline, right? Like you understand your ideal customer profile, that's what you can start to build on and see what else is out there and better understand the markets and adjacencies.
Yeah. And, another tool that folks might turn to is Market View, which is offered by NAIS. It's part of your membership. And that allows you to leverage all that too, in terms of like looking at your current population and where might other populations that fit your baseline fit. And it's a great tool for that.
Yeah.
Well, Annie Davis, thank you, Chief Product Officer at WeVideo and longtime contributor to K-12. Thank you so much for sharing today, and it was just so much fun to talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I really enjoyed it. It was fun. Thank you.
Got it.